today, and the reason that we're having this press conference, the incident happened 5 years and a little over a month ago. It was on November 9th, 2017. We actually had a press conference right here, some of you might have been here, 5 years ago, almost to the day, where following the release of the body camera recordings that document what happened to Chris, where he was pulled over for racial reasons by a gang unit for the Pasadena Police Department, and then was subjected to a lot of blows, having his face smashed into the asphalt and being hit 5 times with a baton at full force. The officers were Larry Esparza and Zachary Lujan. After a community outcry, as many of you know, they were taken off of street duty, given supposed clerical assignments. They were actually still working with the SES gang unit out in the field during that period as it came out. After 3.5 years of so-called internal investigation, they were 100% exonerated by the Pasadena Police Department. Everything they did was determined to be in policy, and with the exception that Esparza didn't turn on his camera. That was the only violation of policy that was found. So since then, they've been given choice assignments. I understand that Esparza is now in the air unit, flying around in the helicopter, and Lujan is now doing homicide investigations. They've had absolutely no consequences for what they did. The city has refused to accept any responsibility. They have denied everything. They filed a motion to dismiss our case as soon as it was filed, saying we didn't have legal grounds to even file a case. Then after we did all the discovery, got all the deposition, testimony, everything together, they made what's called a motion for summary judgment, which is saying that there was not enough evidence for the case to go to trial. Just the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, our federal judge, Fernando Olguin, issued a 62-page ruling. We have copies of it here. It's a little dense, but he found that the statistical evidence that showed that we got 197 field investigation cards from this SES gang unit of traffic stops, and 44% of the people pulled over and stopped and recorded on these cards were black, 55% were Latino, 1% were white. In a city, both Pasadena and Altadena, where this happened, both of which are majority white populations, that this racial discrepancy, along with the circumstances of this particular stop, where Chris was driving his car southbound on Fair Oaks and they were northbound, and they actually shined a spotlight on him and then did a U-turn, and the encounter happened, that showed deliberate racial discrimination, and that the stop itself was illegal as a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, even though there was probable cause to stop him because he had tinted windows and no front license plate. So that's a major, major ruling. The other major ruling is that the judge, after looking at the videotape, said that a jury could say that Chris's behavior as shown on the videotape was, in the word he used, innocuous, which is exactly what I would characterize it as. I think any objective person who looked at the way he acted while he was being hassled by these police officers who were targeting him because of his race, that his conduct was innocuous and that he never posed any threat to the officers. And if you read this opinion, you'll see that time and again, Judge Olguin almost lampoons the officers for saying that they used this force, such as the hitting with the baton, because he was threatening them, because at one point he had a hold of the baton, but it was clearly to prevent being hit. That as soon as Lujan let go of the baton, not Lujan, Esparza let go of the baton to pull his gun out, Chris dropped the baton. And how can you, and that was after he had been hit twice, so how could he have been hit before he had the baton, and then Esparza picked up the baton and hit him 3 more times, breaking his leg? How could that be because he was threatening him with the baton? That these kind of stories that Pasadena police have been putting out since the day of the incident. I mean, the next day they put out a false press release, and they've continued with these lies that are now exposed. The judge has now set a trial date of April 25th, and so I wanted to bring you here so that Chris could share with you his feelings about this stage of the case right now. So I'll turn it over to Chris. I think I'll have a few comments for you, and then you're free to ask him any questions. If it gets into something that's got to do with legal tactics or strategy, I'm gonna step in and not allow those kind of questions. I don't think they're appropriate. But otherwise, Chris is ready to answer all your questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys all for coming. I mean, what this really is all about is accountability. You know, that's why I called this press conference today. Is because, you know, for so long as a young black man, every other black man that I know has gone through similar things that I have, without obviously the violent outcome. But it's always just, you know, 2 steps short of ending up that way. And, you know, for it to come out, you know, being, you know, a Pasadena resident, of growing up there, that, you know, 99% of the time that police are stopping you as a black man, that it's because, not because you did anything wrong, but because they know that you're black or brown. That's why you're being put over. You know, and then to have the feeling, you know, to feel that that's why you're being stopped. You know, I'm here to be a voice today for anybody that's ever felt that way, and that's like, you're right. You know, they stopped you because you were black, and, you know, hopefully this case is going to shine light on all the times that, you know, we as black and brown people are being targeted. You know, Pasadena's known for covering things up. This is something that they can't cover up. Okay, the judge has seen it with the statistical evidence that it's proven that we're being targeted. And now it's time for us to come together and really stand up and say no more, because I know that we're all tired of it. I know I am. And, you know, if it's up to me, it won't continue anymore. So that's all I really have to say.
So, since this case, I know that you, can you talk about your emotional damage, or what would make you feel whole after a situation like this?
I mean, as far as, it's just tough, you know, feeling targeted at all times. I'm known in Pasadena by the police.
You still feel targeted?
Absolutely. You know, it's, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been stopped by the police before, you know, and I don't know if you ever felt a certain amount of animosity, but we as people, we feel energy. And when someone, to be stopped by a police officer, especially in my home city, for them to recognize my last name that is, you know, all too unique, and to ask if I'm the same Ballew from 5 years ago or 3 years ago, you know.
Are you saying officers ask you that when they stop you now?
Absolutely, just for maybe if it's a, you know, a minor, maybe a rolling stop at a stop sign. You know, I've been questioned for that, you know. And then it just seems that the energy that's brought around me, it's like they want to do anything they can to make an example. And that's the way it even felt, you know, back when I was getting beat up. It's like they did what they could to try to, you know, okay, well, don't behave like this because we're gonna do this, you know. And, you know, had there not been video, it could have, none of this, we wouldn't be here today if there was no video of what happened to me. You know, had somebody not stopped and decided, because he felt that what was going on was wrong, that he should pull out his camera and record. You know, it wasn't until that video surfaced that, you know, I even had a case. It wasn't until I went and found a video on Facebook of what happened to me that this became all reality. Otherwise, this would have been another black person that was beaten up and abused by police officers. And it happens all too often in Pasadena. I know people personally that have had run-ins with the same officers that have beat me up.
Chris, take us back to that night when you were just driving down south on Fair Oaks,
Mm-hmm.
and you pulled into the gas station. What was that day like? And then after you were charged, what was it like, and what was that process to kind of get yourself out of custody? Kind of just catch everybody back up to what that process, so we kind of have a timeline of what you've endured from November 9th, 2017 to today.
I mean, it was shocking. You know, if we're taking it back to that night, you know, as a black man, when you're stopped by the police, you always know how it can turn out. You know, you always think like, okay, they could take it left, or I could end up getting killed. You know, but it's a shame to even have to have that type of thought process, but it's the reality. And even that night, I was having a similar thought process. You know, the moment that a light was shined in me, and I knew that I was being targeted because they could see who I was, that's when fear started to really flood in. You know, like they know they're gonna probably stop me. You know, that's how it usually turns out, especially in Pasadena. You know, I'm not sure how many people live in Pasadena here, and I'm not sure how many people have been driving around at night and had, you know, the police randomly shine their flashlight into your car, but they do it all too often. You know, and sometimes you're stopped, sometimes you're not. But to think that, you know, them deciding to stop you could end up with such a violent outcome is, you know, completely ridiculous to me.
So your leg was broken by Esparza's baton strikes.
You know what I'm saying?
You were charged with felony assault or resisting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the transporting, and how did you eventually get out of jail?
I mean, man, it's great. I wish I knew the exact time. It's been so many years as to how long I was actually in jail for. But to be transported to the hospital with the broken leg, I didn't have any anesthesia it felt like forever, you know. And then to be laying on a gurney, and all you hear is police officers making jokes, you know, after your leg just got broken. They don't care about how I'm doing. All I know is I'm handcuffed to the gurney. There's no medical staff, just police officers surrounding me. So no one that can actually take care of me. Just people that have my worst interest at heart at this point, because they believe that I've assaulted their fellow officers. So, you know, no one's untightening my cuff. My cuff is extra tight. At that point, I remember taking the cuff off. I had these like deep abrasions on my wrist because the cuffs were just so tight. And all I was doing was begging them, can you guys loosen the cuffs for me, because I'm laying here with a broken leg, and they just wouldn't help. You know, and then from there to be, you know, all night have to go through, you know, them x-rays, you know, minimal anesthesia, and then to be transported to the county jail where they didn't even transport my medicine. They left my medicine at the police department. So now I have no medicine while I'm in the county jail. And then it turned out that they sent the medicine, but it was after I was already going to be let out. So the medicine didn't serve any purpose. That was supposed to be given to me on the spot. That was prescribed by the doctors for immediate attention. You know, there was none. I was treated like an animal. You know, but an animal that not just any type of animal, but one that, you know, that bit the owner's hand. You know, you don't treat that animal right anymore.
So your bail was around 50 or several hundred. About 50,000.
The bail was $50,000.
All
So
right.
it cost the family the premium for a bond.
Okay. So was that a hardship? Just trying to get a full spectrum of.
I mean, reality is, I mean, no one really has, you know, expects a financial hardship like that to even surface, you know. And I mean, we've been making do, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm broke or anything like that. Like, I'm making do. I'm able to manage my finances, so that's a different topic. Okay, overall, but you know, like I said, I'm just gonna bring it back, you know, circle back around at the point. You know, then the reason why I'm here is really just for accountability. You know.
And what does that look like?
You know, it looks like, or maybe opening back up the investigation into the officer's conduct. You know, a reevaluation of Pasadena police officers, the PPD's policies. You know, it's accountability for the city of Pasadena, accountability for the Pasadena Police Department, accountability for, both officers that were involved in breaking my leg, and really anyone else that's involved in that department. The fact of the matter is that the Pasadena Police Department is using pretextual traffic stops to stop black and brown people, not anyone else. And the statistics show it. The judge has seen it. And when we go to trial, anyone that looks at that evidence is going to see the same thing. They're targeting people that look like me, and without any record of any type of criminal history. And it's been going on. It's going on today. But in the near future, I guarantee that things are going to start to come to light, and it will stop.
If I could ask, have you or will you be seeking monetary damages at any point?
Absolutely.
Any idea how much?
No,
That's
that's
lawyer to determine that.
that's not the place to discuss
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
But in terms of that, we do have a claim for punitive damages against the two officers. And at this point, that's the only way that they would have any consequences whatsoever for their conduct. There's absolutely no other remedy, no other consequences for them. They haven't lost a day of pay. They've got plum assignments. They were never referred for criminal prosecution, which they should have been. So the punitive damage claim is at this point the only opportunity there exists for there to be any consequences to these two officers.
Where's that claim? Has it been filed yet?
We have a trial set in April 25th.
That's the one for punitive damages.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's part of the overall lawsuit.
And have you been in contact? There have been two police chiefs since this happened. Are you still in contact in any way with the police department at the moment?
Well, we deal with their lawyers. They're represented.
Chris brings up a very good word, and he uses the word accountability. And throughout all of this, what I've watched is the police department to be able to write the narrative of what was happening, and that narrative did not match any of the events that were taking place. I watched them narrate things and say things into their body cams, and in those into their body cams that did not match what was going on. And it was appalling to me. I saw an officer draw a weapon on a man who was innocuous. And when I looked at him, the thing that I saw in his eyes was hatred. And it was frightening to me after the fact. And I had to question, it's like, how could you have this look of hatred in your eyes and on your face in reference to someone you don't even know? And that to me is frightening. It's frightening not only for my son for that night, but also for every other black man that walks the streets, for every other brown man that walks the streets, that becomes a victim of this pretextual stopping that's taking place within the city. I have seen many other incidents of violent nature in other cities that have taken place where I have seen those cities and those municipalities step up and take ownership and discipline their officers. But in Pasadena, it seems as though there's a different code of conduct. There's a different acceptance of violence against black men that does not seem to match what's happening in the rest of the nation. I've seen and the cover up and the I'll say the standing together of these officers. I was there when they were being questioned and when they were questioning Christopher, and I sat there and I looked at the faces of these men. There was no remorse. There were snide looks on the faces of these men who had no regard for what they had done, and that let me know that because there's no regard, this is not an isolated incident. Those people, there was no conscience, at all. And so in terms of accountability, this is the thing that I've said before, and that is usually when there is a camera placed somewhere, that camera or even knowledge that you're being recorded would cause a person to have and be on their best behavior. It's policy that the officers would turn on those cameras whenever there's a stop, but it did not deter them from acting the way that they did, from breaking the law, from assaulting my son It was not a sufficient deterrent. And that I don't understand, because if the camera itself does not create a deterrent, then that suggests to me that there's something systemically happening within the department that does not punish the behavior. That was my pretext or my hypothesis then. And now as I look at what's going on and things have unfolded, I see that what I saw, what I believed then was actually the truth. And the truth is that there is no punishment, that the Pasadena Police Department covers up those who have done wrong. And I've always held too that those that every officer is not a bad apple or bad, but there are some that are bad, and for those who are bad, they need to be punished. They're not above the law. It's like the law is not above the law is the law. The law is to uphold the law. And so if those officers in any way felt that they were threatened by someone who was non-threatening, then I question their judgment. And I would wonder, it's like, what are we doing to make sure that the people that we are hiring to protect and serve do not have some type of, I don't know, something going on with them, that they're afraid of things that they should not be afraid of. So I question that. So those are my thoughts in terms of how it has impacted the family. You know, you hear my daughter, you know, talk about being stopped. I feel that way when a police officer pulls up behind me. I feel like, am I safe? You know, I hear sirens. Is my family safe? And so now I've turned into that person who, when I see someone pulled along, you know, and sitting on the side of the road, I've turned into that person who stops. And I will stand and I will watch to make sure that things are not going on that should not go on. But I shouldn't be the one that's patrolling the police. When something like this comes out and the evidence speaks for itself, why is there not accountability?